Hi everyone, welcome to the Witching Week. Today is episode number 83. Today we're going to be looking at some of the things that I found in a charity shop recently. We are going to be looking at Flying Ant Day. We're going to be talking about Lughnasadh in detail as we've only got a couple of weeks to go. So get comfy, grab a cup of something nice, get yourself a cup of tea or something, put some incense on, get cozy, and we'll explore the Witching Week. Hi everyone, welcome back. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Every Friday we get together. We have something nice to drink together. We kick back, we relax, and we chat about the week before and the week to come. We look at the turn of the wheel and the seasons, and I usually have a bit of a moan about the weather. So what am I drinking today? Today I'm actually on sparkling water and I'm burning some of my favourite patchouli forest. I have to do this one every so often because it's my absolute favourite. So how has your week been? What's your week been like? Has it been good? What's the energy been like for you? How have things been ticking along? I can't believe that it's the 19th of July already. Time is just absolutely flying at the moment. And talking of which, Justin took a picture of me. He just sent me this in the week. He took a picture of me on my birthday, conked out on the sofa. As you can see, I've got some fairy ears on. Which is very much in the spirit of Fairy Month that we're having over on Patreon at the moment. He sent this picture to me saying how sweet I looked. I disagree. I think I look like Mortis. I'm going to stick a picture of Mortis up so that you can compare. Go and have a look and see who Mortis is. I was not impressed. It was very sweet. It was very sweet of him, but yeah, I did not think that was a great picture. What has happened in your week? Let me know. Tell me what's been going on, what you've been up to. Have you got any good news? I would love to hear. So last Sunday we had the football. It was the European Championship final. That's a mouthful to say. And I was very excited about this, but alas, as always, we failed at the last minute. So that was the beginning of my week. We always lose. It's so rubbish. It really is so rubbish. And we always manage to get to like the semi-final or the final. We do so well and then we just let go of it basically. We panic, we do whatever it is we do. We get a bit complacent and then we lose it. So that was Sunday. This week, I've managed to get to a couple of charity shops. One was last weekend when I was out with my hubby and the kids, and then one in the week. So let me show you what I bought. I'm always on the lookout for magical items. So whether that be sort of clothes wise, because occasionally you can come across the odd item. I've seen a cardigan before with astrological symbols on. There was a reason why I didn't buy that. I think it was a bit glittery and it was a bit twee for me, so I didn't buy that. But depending on the area you're in, of course, obviously you can find some corkers in the charity shops in Glastonbury, but you know, you can find the odd cloak or just the odd item of clothing that like maybe you could use in ritual. I'm always on the lookout for magical books and magical items, obviously. I didn't really find anything magical per se, although the first item I bought, which was in the Sue Ryder shop in Peterborough, which is a fantastic retro / vintage shop, I did find a folk album. So for me, this is quite witchy. I have no idea what it's like. I have no idea who Johnny Collins is. However, it's called Honest John with Friends. Very, very 60s / 70s. Let me have a look. Has it got a date on? Oh, it says 1982. So a year after I was born. But it just looks like, I don't know if you can see that. It just looks like it would be really, really cool. And usually folk albums are a pretty good bet. If you're into folk music, which I am, usually you're all right. And quite often, obviously, folk songs are about the harvest. There's like all sorts of like love stories and this about the sea and stuff like that. So I find folk music to be, yeah, really quite pagan and witchy. So I'm going to give that a go once I can get to the record player. And then this week, a bit later on this week, I was meeting a friend And I nipped into the Loros charity shop. So this was in Uppingham. They've got a few in this area, Loros. And I started looking at this book, and it's The Tales of Mrs. Hedgehog. And I realised that these images were very, very familiar to me. So I had this book as a kid, I'm certain of it. This image in particular, I used to spend ages looking at this. And as I flipped through, it's just absolutely delightful and just totally took me back. And there's quite a few images in here as well that I really, really adored. Let me find, there's an image of her bathing her babies. I thought I put some markers in this, I've obviously taken them out, not helpful. Let me find the image of her. It's very, very old. It says inside the front of it that this is rare. It was released by Marks and Spencer's. It was a Marks and Spencer's book. It's because I'm talking. I can't do two things at the same time. Let me flick through like this and then I'll hold it up to you. But yeah, this book is just absolutely delightful and it's just so beautiful. It's about all the animals that live in this forest with Mrs. Hedgehog, who's called Henrietta. So this image here of her bathing her babies was just so magical for me as a child. And I always wanted to be the hedgehog in the pink blanket because he's just being beautifully cuddled. And then there's this other image here as well. Yeah, on this side where they're in the forest and there are glowworms lighting up the way. So yeah, absolutely beautiful. I didn't find any magical items, but this was really magical in my childhood. So I was really, really happy to find a copy of that. So I had to buy it. It was only a few pounds. So what else has been going on? On Thursday, we had Flying Ant Day. So I met a friend and we met in the sort of like late afternoon, evening, and there were flying ants everywhere to the point where we were trying to get in a building and I was picking them out of her hair. So Flying Ant Day, apparently it's not one day. It's not one day in the year, although it often feels like it because it will happen over one day in your area generally. But it's more like that we have a flying ant season. Now, the reason I love Flying Ant Day so much is because it seems that everybody else calls it Flying Ant Day. This was something that happened as kids that we call Flying Ant Day. I mean, it does what it says on the tin, doesn't it? It's when the ants fly. There's no other day like it either. And it's really weird now to see articles and bits on the news about Flying Ant Day when I've never heard anyone else ever call it that, but it seems that we all call it that, which is absolutely brilliant. So apparently flying ants are called alates, and they are the mature queens and the males of the black garden ant, which is strange because when you look at them, they are a lot bigger than your black ant that you see out and about. But obviously there's a cycle and a process here. Now, Flying Ant Day happens in July or August, and it happens generally earlier in urban areas because you get that warmth, don't you? In cities that are very, very congested with buildings and people and cars, and it tends to be warmer. So it'll be warmer in London than it will be in the surrounding areas. So it happens in urban areas before countryside areas. So for us it was Thursday. Now apparently it is an annual swarming event that is actually triggered by the weather. So I've just written down what it needs to be for it to happen. So it has to be warm, it has to not be windy, and apparently it generally has to be that conditions have vastly improved compared to the previous day. So on Wednesday, the weather here was absolutely awful. It was absolutely chucking it down all day. It was really cold as well. And then Thursday, we've had the nice day of beautiful weather. So apparently as well, and this is anecdotal, apparently it generally happens after rain as well, which totally fits in with what happened this week. So yeah, it's absolutely fascinating, a fascinating day. And apparently ants live in a caste system, The winged males are called drones, and the virgin queens are called princesses. And I'm sure if you delved into this topic a bit further, you would find loads more of really, really interesting information. So I was thinking about ants, and I was thinking about magical correspondences related to ants and the imagery of ants. What do you think of when you think of ants? Immediately, I have several ideas that come to mind. So for example, there's this idea of hard work, there's this idea of strength, because you see these images of ants, don't you? Or you can see it in action. You see ants carrying these massive, massive bits of food that are, you know, 5 times bigger than them. I think they can actually carry up to, is it 10 times their weight or 100 times their weight? It's something really, really incredible. I think of cooperation, I think of community, and I think of like aid and help and charity, like they work together. I'm not so sure if I think of like the hive mind, because they're not like bees, they don't live in a hive, but at the same time they do live in a colony, don't they? They all work together. Like I said, they live in a caste system, so they all have their set jobs. Everyone has a role, and together they survive as a species. So very, very interesting. So what else has been going on? We have now got beautiful weather. As I just mentioned, terrible weather on Wednesday, then it picked up on Thursday and we had Flying Ant Day, and now Friday, absolutely beautiful. So we've gone from zero to hero, and this always happens. We go from one day being really, really cold, and I was wearing a thick wool cardi to keep me warm, and then now we're at like 30 degrees. It's going to be 30 degrees today, so I'm wearing a vest because it's so warm. It's lovely. So I'm happy. I don't know about you guys, but I was starting to feel really, really quite miserable, especially when we hit St Swithin's Day, and you know, you've got the folklore of you know, you know, whatever the weather is on St Swithin's Day, but in particular we always talk about the rain here in the UK. Whatever the weather is on the 15th of July, then that is going to be the weather for the next 40 days and 40 nights. Well, that has turned out to be wrong. So I'm quite happy. As one of my patrons said, up yours St Swithin's, which did make me laugh. The attitude that I love. And so yeah, it's absolutely beautiful now. And I really think that we need to make the most of it, because we have got just about 2 weeks or slightly under now until Lughnasadh. So for many people, they celebrate the 1st of August as basically the very, very beginning of autumn. They consider August, September and October to be autumn, and then November, December and January to be the depths of winter. And then as you get into sort of February, March time, you're looking at spring. So time to make the most of it, I think. As I'm having a better day today, I'm going to suggest to my husband that we maybe go somewhere this evening and actually just enjoy the summer evening, because we go to bed quite early and he has to be up early, and so we miss these beautiful summer evenings. And so yeah, I really think that we all need to make the most of it, because the weather has been so atrocious here in the UK, certainly in my part of the UK. So yeah, it's been lovely. It's lovely today. I'm looking out there to like bright blue sky. So Lughnasadh, what is Lughnasadh? You might have heard it referred to as Lammas. You might have even heard it referred to as other things. So it falls on the 1st of August, and if you're a pagan, you consider it to be the first of 3 harvests generally. Some people might think, oh, it's 2, but no, it's actually 3. So this first harvest, we very much centre on celebrating grain and being thankful for grain. When we get to the autumn equinox, which some people call Marbon, then we look at fruit. So it's kind of like a celebration of the fruit that comes. And that is much more sort of centred on Thanksgiving. Both festivals are for Thanksgiving, but I feel like the autumn equinox one is kind of more Thanksgiving because it's this one and this one combined. And then we have the third harvest, which is Samhain. And I'm not actually sure whether that's why that's referred to as a harvest as well. Perhaps that's more like vegetables. However, I always refer to that in my head as a harvest of souls. And that might well be the reason it's called the third harvest, I don't know, but that's very much how I think of it. Vegetable harvests actually go on up until about December, really. This is the interesting thing about the harvest. So I was doing some research on the harvest. Next month, that is going to be our theme over on Patreon. And so I've been deeply immersed in folk customs of the UK and all of this sort of stuff ready for next month. And there was a really, really good point in there that as pagans, we tend to think of the harvest as being, you know, Lughnasadh, the first grain, and then Marbon, the autumn equinox, fruit, and then that's kind of it. But actually the harvest began back in the middle of June, so the first hays were brought in then, and then there is an absolute abundance of work. It's not just grain, it's not just fruit. The harvest actually runs from middle of June to December traditionally. Now obviously things were very, very different, you know, 100 years ago and beyond. So for example, you know, one of the things that would be harvested, and they're still harvested today because we still have them, but is reed for thatched cottages and buildings. So back when everyone had a building like that, that would very much be one of the jobs that needed to be done. Hops, other building materials, so bracken was used for things. People collected acorns and they were used for feed, and I think during the war they were even used for like making coffee and stuff like that. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done during the harvest. It's not just some crop, you know, for grains and then some fruit. You know, there's vegetables and there's all the weeding and all the other jobs that need to be done as well. So the actual process of the harvest is year round. And then in terms of bringing things in, that's actually a period of about 6 months. So I'm very much going into this harvest feeling very, very different about it. Now I've got a little bit more knowledge on it, which makes sense. You know, when you say these things, you're like, well, yeah, of course. But, you know, in terms of being a pagan and looking at the harvest, I think we do forget, and you know, being a pagan for many people is about thinking about what our ancestors did. And yet we seem to have this disconnect. You know, we think of the harvest almost as a small thing that just happens over 1.5, 2 months, but no, it was 6 months, but the work was obviously all year round. So I feel even more grateful now, you know, when you think about these things. And yeah, it does make you a bit concerned as well, because obviously we've built a society that is a certain way, and if it all goes wrong, then it's going to be a big bump down to the bottom. But anyway, I thought we could have a look at some of the colours and some of the themes and some of the decorations and things that surround the Harvest Festival. So I was thinking about colours because when I was pondering, when I was writing or preparing for the Witching Week, I was thinking that I very much associate yellow with Litha. So that's sort of like, you know, that sun colour. And then when I think about Lughnasadh / Lammas, I very much think about the colour orange, so a slightly more sort of burnt colour. If you think, I think about the fields, I think about the colour of the crops, and I think about, you know, the difference in the sunlight and the intensity of the sun. And I've decided that, you know, the main colour, so this is main colours, because obviously there are several colours associated with each festival, but yeah, for me, Litha is yellow, Lughnasadh is orange, and then when I think about Marbon, I think about like a deep purpley red, which I guess is, you know, those sort of fruits and apples and blackberries and things like that. And then when I think about Samhain, it's very much like black or grey, maybe even a dark grey. So what do you think? Do you have colours that you associate with different festivals? You might say purple for Samhain, or for, you know, if you celebrate that as Halloween. There are lots of differences, aren't there, between us as people, and it very much depends as well on your landscape and your environment, what you were brought up believing. But those are my colours, and we could go on, you know, like Beltane, I think of green. Imbolg, I think of probably white for Imbolg. Astara, I'll probably go with like a pale yellow maybe. And then what else, what have we missed out? Yule, I probably think of that as, well, there's no escape, it's green and red, isn't it? It's very hard to pin that down to one colour. red, we could say, if I had to. But yeah, I love pondering these things, and I love comparing them to other people's thoughts as well and sentiments, because it varies very much from person to person. So I was thinking about themes of the festival, and again, I was trying to do all of this without referring to my grimoire, because although I have all this stuff written down, and I've obviously been a practicing witch for many years, or a pagan for many years, I think sometimes it's actually really good to sit and reflect on the festivals as they come around, because I do find that as you get older, or you could say as you become more developed on this path, or you know, you've experienced more, you do get insights sometimes that you perhaps didn't have before. So I always think that's really good to just sit and do it without looking at anything. But themes for this time of year. So obviously harvesting, and we're not just talking about food, we're talking about personal growth, we're talking about, you know, you reap as you sow, a saying that we've all heard before, which is so true. I mean, yes, you literally reap what you sow, but there is that, you know, that spiritual, that day-to-day life, you reap what you sow. And obviously this is an opportunity to think about what it is we have sown and what it is we are reaping. And the reasons for that, you know, is our own personal harvest how we want it to be? Is everything as we imagined and hoped and desired and worked towards? Or you know, did things go wrong somehow? Did they not quite turn out the way we wanted? What can we do about that? What can we do better? How can we achieve the things that we want to achieve? What seeds do we plant for next year? So this idea of harvesting, life cycles. So when we look at the old folk song, John Barleycorn, which is the story of barley, there is this idea, you know, that the ground is prepared, he's planted, there's that period of darkness, he grows, he matures, he's in his full, you know, resplendent beauty, and then he is chopped down. But he comes back, that, you know, that cycle of life continues. He comes back to seek his revenge. He comes back as beer. So very interesting. And it makes sense, doesn't it, that this time of year we would start to think about life cycles before we proper head into the dark, sort of the darker part of the year and the dark part of the year, so winter. So harvest, it's all about that idea of bringing in the crops, assessing what you have, and then that is going to give you some insight as to some of the trials and tribulations that your community would experience. I.e., have we got enough food for winter? Are we going to survive? So yeah, these life cycles. So again, you know, who are you as a person? What do you need to change? What do you love about yourself? Or who are you going to be in this next turn of the wheel? Are there things that you want to change? You know, you can start again. That's the lovely thing about celebrating the wheel of the year. It just rolls around and round and round, and each Sabbath is an opportunity to basically start again, be reborn. So harvesting, we're thinking of those themes that are covered in John Barleycorn, and we think about his death, and we think about his treatment and all the indignities that he suffers. But then we understand at the end of the story that it was all for a purpose. So all those life lessons that we learn about, you know, along the way in our lives, it's all for a reason. Reward. So we're thinking about the fruits of our labour at this time of year. Again, that goes back to reaping what you have sown. So what have you sown? You know, what are you going to be rewarded with? What have you worked hard at? What have you not worked so hard at? What could you have put more effort into? And then as we get closer to Marbon, the autumn equinox, then we're thinking about gratitude. So gratitude for those rewards. So when I think about the two pagan harvests, I very much think about Marbon as being the one where we centre on gratitude. And I mean, that one's in September. I suppose actual Thanksgiving in the US is in November. But I feel like that part of the year, as it gets darker, as it gets colder, and there will be a very much you know, be a difference at the autumn equinox. Day and night are going to be the same length, which will be very, very different to where we're at now. We will be thinking about gratitude for the blessings over the year, over the summer. And again, it's that taking stock, isn't it, before we head into what would have been, you know, the risky part of the year for communities many, many years ago. And even now, it's hard, isn't it, for people with the cost of living emergency, you know, that idea of going into the very difficult part of the year where you might not be able to afford to heat your home and you have to choose between heating and eating. I'm definitely feeling the energy of the wheel of the year much more, being in that situation ourselves. So yeah. And then lastly, sacrifice. And there are other themes you could probably think of for Lughnasadh and heading in towards Marbon. But I'm thinking about the main themes here. So sacrifice. So when we work at something, so whether that you be working for someone else or working for yourself, I want to say that self-employment counts. I've very much experience. I've been self-employed before, and I find that people treat you as if you don't have a job, when actually in many ways it's harder because you have to seek out the work, you have to drum up the work. But anyway, when we are involved in labour, so that might be the labour of the harvest, long days, working into the night, or whether that be in a modern day setting, you know, you're out at work 40 hours plus a week, or you work from home, or, you know, you might be in a job that absolutely takes a lot out of you. You might be an A&E doctor, for example, but usually we have to give something up as a result of that labour. And this is a time to think about all sorts of sacrifices. So John Barleycorn, his life is sacrificed so that the people of his community may eat and may drink. So yeah, this is a time to think about sacrifices. It's a time where we think about the sacrifices that we make, that we're happy about, that we need to make. But also this can be a time where we think about the sacrifices that we're making that actually don't work for us. So when I said this, I didn't have this when I was planning this, but when I've just said that, immediately the Two of Pentacles springs to mind. You know, that card where he's juggling, and I think about working smarter rather than harder. I'm thinking about, you know, when you're juggling balls and things are very, very busy and you're doing a magnificent job, but what happens when you drop one of those balls or one of those plates? You can look at it as plates, but yes, sacrifice. Are you sacrificing too much, or are you sacrificing what's right? So yeah, a lovely time to think about these themes. And in a nod to sacrifice, I have to say thank you so much to my patrons, my top supporters, who basically allow me to be able to do this as a job, to be able to bring this as a video to you, to continue working within the witchcraft community and sharing ideas and sharing information and education, because without you guys I would not be able to continue to do that. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. I could not do this without you guys. So my gratitude to them and to everyone on YouTube. You know, while we're on the subject, we'll be talking about gratitude a lot in the Witching Week over the coming weeks, I'm sure, as we work through these harvest themes. But yeah, thank you so much. And if you fancy joining us on Patreon, come over. We have a lovely community. We have a very kind and welcoming community where everybody takes care of each other, and you will get early access to videos, you get exclusive videos, and there's a whole other range of benefits. So we have spells, we have recipes, we have community altars, we have interviews, and there's always a mix. I'm always trying to keep it fresh. We don't have a set schedule each month, other than things like the newsletter going out and the printable downloadable grimoire sheets. There's always a bit of mix. So we won't always have a community altar each month, we won't always have a spell each month. I keep it fresh and I keep it rolling, but you'd be very welcome to join us. How are you going to mark Lughnasadh? Let me know. What are your plans? Have you started planning at all? This would usually, I suppose, about 2 weeks before would be the point at which that I would start to think about planning what I'm going to do, unless it's a major festival. Lughnasadh is one of those ones for me where you know, I tried to do something, obviously I tried to do something for each of the Sabbats but I suppose it falls behind in terms of things like Samhain, Yule, Beltane. I mean, sometimes we just can't do it all. I do very much love the energy of Lughnasadh, you know, the whole embracing the season and gratitude, and you know, that whole reflection on reaping as you've sown. And actually, as a child, I loved the harvest festivals that we had at school. So I don't know what goes on now. It's been a long time since my daughter was at little school, primary school. All of our 3 children between my husband and I, they've all, you know, they've got into their secondary school now. So I don't think there is as much as a sort of focus on things like harvest festivals. And I wonder as well if that's just changed over the years too. But when I was little, Harvest Festival was a really big thing. So we would go over to the church at some point, which would be decorated with wheat and corn dollies and fruits and vegetables. I mean, they would really go for it, and we would have a church service and there would be a lot of singing, which I absolutely loved. I loved that whole thing, and looking back now, I could see that I enjoyed that uplift of energy that people singing together brings, and that was really special. That used to, you know, I could feel that I loved that. So I wasn't big on God, and I didn't grow up in a religious family. I did go to a Church of England school, so we did always sing about God, and there were hymns and there was praying and all of that, but it felt very warm and welcoming and safe and joyful. I was so lucky. I went to a small I grew up in a large village. We're talking one down on the Surrey-Hants border, so we're not talking rural, but it still had that feel about it, that kind of country village school about it. So we had a maypole. I danced the maypole, and then many years later my daughter danced that very same maypole. So they were quite big on customs and traditions, which looking back I'm so pleased about, and I was so lucky to have as a child. So we'd go over to the church, it would all be decorated, we'd sing hymns and songs related to gratitude and food. There was a couple of songs that were really, really good. There was one about vegetables, and I can't remember what it was called, but we used to sing about cabbages happy and cauliflowers green or something, strawberries sweeter than any you've seen, and then it was about like broad beans, and it was like the vegetables were kind of like little people, a bit like the Poddington peas. I'm really showing my age here. I'm sorry if you're not from the UK, none of this will make any sense, but if you are, then it will make sense. But you could always Google Poddington peas kids cartoon. Yeah, so some of the songs used to make me think of some of the cartoons that we watched. And we would normally go to an old people's home as well and do some singing, and we would always have to take in some canned food to donate, and quite often that would be distributed amongst the old people at the old people's home. So I can remember giving them baskets individually that had a range of things in, and I can remember them being, or seeming like they were very, very grateful, but looking back, it was probably a load of old shit, to be honest. Sorry to swear, but when you think about like the kind of foodstuffs you got in cans back then, which I'm sure probably meant they ate them, but I'm thinking about, you know, like marrow fat peas and stuff like that. Yeah, we used to give them these baskets of canned foods, and yeah, it was probably really disappointing for them, but they certainly pretended like they were grateful. They were very gracious, and I absolutely loved it, because you would give a basket over and then you'd normally get a nice cuddle from someone. I was such a soft kid. So yeah, I really love that. And there was usually more singing, so we'd sing for the old people and we'd spend time with them. And I'm sure we had a meal with them. I'm sure we had a harvest meal with them. It was certainly something we used to do at Christmas, and I really loved that sense of community. I thought it was great. Now, again, I don't know what form harvest festivals would take, whether that is just you take in some cans and then it gets donated to a food bank. But yeah, they were happy harvest festivals when I was a kid, and we are talking a very long time ago now. We're talking 38 years ago, so I think they were very, very different to the days now, and that is a worry, isn't it, that a lot of our sort of folklore and our customs and the things we do, yes, okay, they're changing and they're changing for the modern person, but I think it would be lovely to hang on to what we had, because it was awesome. It was awesome. Anyway, let's talk about the Lughnasadh altar now. So this is a lovely time. This is probably one of the best altars to create, I think. Yule is a really nice one. Yeah, there are some that are just easier than others, aren't there? This one's brilliant. If you can source some items related to the harvest or the sun, then you can create a really beautiful altar. So I've listed some of the things that you could put on it. You're not going to be able to get your hands on all of these things. For some of them, the internet will be your friend. And if you're lucky enough to live in a rural community, you might be able to source some of these items. So barley, bread, corn, a corn dolly. So now is a great time to make corn dollies, which are all about the spirit of the harvest. That's what they represent. We used to have huge corn dollies back in harvest festivals many moons ago, and also making a Bridget's cross or Bridie's cross for the altar at Imbolc. This would be the time that you would make it, because that spark of inspiration, but also that spark of light, that energy, that warmth. We're looking at the sun coming back at Imbolc. Well, that is the sun that we have at its peak at the moment, that has grown our food, that has, you know, tended to the fields so that we may eat. So now is the time to make those ahead of Imbolc for the Imbolc altar. You could get your hands on a cornucopia. I've been meaning to buy one of these for forever. I will get round to buying one, because eventually I'd love to have one on my altar and decorate it with grain and fruit. Anything related to Lu, so obviously Lughnasadh, so the Celtic god of the sun. You might be able to find a nice statue or a nice figurine of him online. Anything that's like a disc that's yellow or orange, that, you know, obviously represents the sun. Grain of any kind, gourds, poppies, anything seasonal, absolutely anything seasonal that you can find outside. Poppies, I just said poppies, a sickle or a scythe, that's very, you know, very apt for this time of year, because that's how the harvest was brought in. Sun wheel, sun cross, sun symbols, anything at all related to the sun. A plough, so I don't know if you've got like a little model of a plough. I know many of our grandparents used to have ceramic figurines, and ploughs were quite common. And wheat, so any kind of grain at all obviously makes sense for this time of year. So that's us done for the time being. It's time for us to do some cards. Let's have a shuffle of these. So let me know, what are your Lughnasadh plans for the upcoming festival? Are you organised? Are you more organised than me? I've always got my head down working, but today, after I finish this video and I've uploaded it and done all that I need to do, I'm going to sit down and have a serious think about how, as a family, we're going to mark it. So we will most likely have a seasonal feast. I'll decorate the altar, which I will show you. But yeah, we need to seriously think about organising something and then just enjoying these last days of summer, because obviously for many people we're celebrating, or you're celebrating the beginning of autumn. I'm never quite ready to do that on August the 1st, I must admit. I'm still going to be celebrating the summer on that day. I'm going to be just celebrating the harvest, I think, and my gratitude. I think of the Burr months as being autumn, so September, October, November, but I can't quite bring myself to have that as August. Okay, so we've got 3 cards. I decided to go for 3 today. We've got the Star, we have got the 7 of Pentacles, and we have got the Ace of Cups. So You couldn't make it up really, could you? I mean, this one is very much about reaping as you sow, and this one is very much about blessings and your cup overfloweth. So very, very funny that I should pick these cards. And I had a bit of an insight as well when I picked out the star. If you look, she's pouring water into the pool that very much I think she would seek to see her reflection in. So again, this is about reaping as you sow. So the water that she is pouring into that pool is going to contribute to the reflection that she sees looking back at herself. So as she is lit up by the stars around her, which indicate destiny and, you know, traveling along the path that you're supposed to, obviously this indicates as well a period of hope and healing. And again, I hope you find that in your Lughnasadh reflections, in your harvest reflections, when you look at your life and you know, you give it a once over and you think about what you have sown and what you have reaped. And it's true, isn't it, that you reap as you sow. That very much is. My tarot deck is so just on the money. It's absolutely brilliant, and the Witching Week has really helped me tune back in with this skill. I used to read professionally many years ago, and then for one reason or another, and becoming poorly, I ended up letting go of that skill, and it's taken a long time for it to come back to me, and I've been doing a lot of work on it, and it's like something has just opened up now. Eventually I would like to offer tarot readings out to you all, but for the time being it's something that, you know, is worked on, and that message is for you as well. If you've been working on something, keep at it, even if it is taking you longer than you ever imagined, for whatever reason, whether that be life getting in the way, illness, lack of funds, lack of computing space, just whatever, just keep at it. It doesn't matter if it takes you 10 years to do something that would take other people 1 year. The point is, if you work at it, if you want it hard enough, if you want it enough, you'll get there. And that has always been my message. And the Ace of Cups, which I've just thrown, that indicates, you know, a period of love and compassion and creativity and healing. Very much aligns, I feel, with the star in this particular reading. But this is a card to say that, you know, whatever's coming up soon, you're going to be looking at an abundant energy, which again is one of those main themes of harvest. We didn't talk about that in terms of our themes. I chose not to put that down because I feel like the gratitude theme nods to that abundance, that prosperity. It's one of the things that you say thankful for, and it's also one of the themes that we'll probably look at in the weeks to come. So yeah, very lovely hand of cards there. So keep going, keep working at whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. You will reap the rewards of your hard work, your sacrifice and your labour. And remember that whatever you put in, you will get out. So in this case, whatever you pour into the pool, you will see face back at you. So if you pour love into that pool, you will see self-love back at you. I could go on and on and on with, you know, the messages of these cards, but I will allow you to come up with some of your own insights, because I know that some of you like doing that with my readings, and I keep it short because it's, you know, obviously it's just a quick one. I thought I would also give you a card from the Whispering Woods today. I thought that seemed apt, so let's give them a good shuffle while I think about you as a group, and I think about pulling this for you guys. Okay, so these are lovely, these cards. I've shown you these before, but I'll just show you again. They're called Whispering Woods, Enchanting Secrets from the Forest, Jessica Lee. Okay, just gonna pick one out. And that is Forbearance. Do not be deterred by the thorn amidst the roses. Ooh, that's an interesting message. So keep going, work hard, you will get there. You will reap the fruits of your labour, and don't be put off Don't be deterred by the thorn amidst the roses. So that works perfectly, doesn't it? So I'm wishing you all a fantastic week ahead. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. And yeah, just take good care of yourself, look after your loved ones, and I shall see you next Friday in another episode of The Witching Week. Love and blessings.